Coach, Episode 4. Hello again. I'm Coach Anthony Lozada, and interestingly, we have guests joining us tonight who can help us better understand the way grief works. We could experience different kinds of grief, whether it be time lost with a loved one who passed away, business or financial loss, the recent experience of the Philippine elections, for lost opportunities, and hope for the future. Can we get past grief and honestly move forward? But before we dive into the discussion, let me say hello to all our brothers and sisters watching us live and on replay, to all BCBP Alabang chapter members and other chapter BCBP community members out there, all our family and friends. Good evening and thank you for joining us for episode 4. This Go Live online series is one way we continue to live out our BCBP mission of bringing Christ to the marketplace and winning the marketplace for Christ. Our discussions this season are anchored on the BCBP Be Honest advocacy. Be honest even if others are not, even if others will not, even if others cannot. So, speaking of honesty, this discussion will only be successful if you, our listeners, will all begin to be honest with our own mental health and to respect those who suffer from mental health concerns. Just like our physical, emotional, and spiritual health, awareness is key to knowing if we need help or it's time to rest and pause. If the discussion will trigger you in any way, we recommend that you talk to someone in your support system or, better yet, seek professional help. And to all of you chiming in to the discussion, live or on replay, please think before you write. Type in your insights, comments, and questions because we'd like to hear from you too. Now, I would like to ask our guest panel to join me in this broadcast. So while waiting, I'd like to say hello again to our brothers and sisters watching us live. Hi, Basti. There. Okay. Good evening, panelists. Thank you for being here. It's an honor and my pleasure to introduce you to our viewers. So first, let me introduce one of our members at the BCBP Alabang, Basti Lacson. He is the
Hello.
CEO for a construction company, organizational health practitioner, and leadership enthusiast. He confidently uses leadership and engagement principles to infuse execution excellence into companies in varied industries with the hope of making work meaningful, enjoyable, and fruitful. He is here tonight to shed light on his journey of recovery from grief after losing his wife, Aina, from cancer. Again, Brother Basti, sympathies and prayers to you and your whole family. Second,
Thank
we
you po.
have our Coach Aiza, Caparas-Tabayoyong. She has been a family, parenting, and relationship consultant with the Love Institute since 2010. She is also an executive coach, trainer, facilitator, and a regular subject matter expert for various TV, radio, and internet programs. She is trained in psycho-spiritual counseling under the Ruben M. Tanseco Center for Family Ministries, CEFAM in Ateneo. She and her husband are active as lay chaplains and board members of the Marriage Preparation Foundation, running monthly Discovery Weekend, and are members of the Couples for Christ community. But of all her roles, Coach Aiza is proudest being a devoted wife and proud mother of two flourishing teenagers. So welcome, Coach Aiza.
Thank you, Coach Anthony.
Good
Hello, good
evening.
evening,
Yes.
everyone.
Yeah. And lastly, joining our guest panelists, we have Dr. Maria Lourdes A. Carandang, Ph.D. She is popularly known as Dr. Honey. She is a clinical psychologist, national social scientist, and founder of the MLAC, Mindfulness, Love, and Compassion Institute. MLAC Institute is a team of highly qualified clinical and developmental psychologists caring for the well-being of children, adolescents, adults, and families. Welcome, Dr. Carandang. Good evening
Thank
po.
you.
Coach Anthony. Good evening. Thank
Evening.
you.
And again, thank you all for being here. To start with our discussion, are you ready? I would like to
Mhm.
ask Basti, what has been your journey of grief like after losing the love of your life, your wife Aina, to cancer? I know this might be a difficult. This might be difficult for you to share, but we hope that our viewers will learn from your experience, Basti.
Well, thanks, Coach. First of all, the journey of someone who has to live with someone who's going through that requires a lot of understanding and comprehension from everyone. You know, a lot of us, when someone passes away, we come in towards the end for the wake, for the novenas, and so on. However, the journey of those who are living with individuals who go through suffering like that is a little bit different, no? Because we see them from being perfectly well to being almost cadaveric. And the worst part is when they're your spouse, you know, they sleep next to you. So the person sleeping next to you is transformed from a perfectly fine and healthy individual to a survivor of the Nazi concentration camps in the space of 3 or 4 months. It's very difficult to take, you know, and grief has limits. I think what people need to understand is that grief isn't limitless. There's a limit to the grief that an individual can take. So, you know, those who go through something like that require, if you will, special comprehension and special handling. No? But, you know, I'd rather coach give message of hope, right? So, parang me, what I kind of learned here is that, you know, suffering is universal, right? There's nothing you can do about suffering. It's always there. But victimhood is up to you. So it's up to you whether you choose to be a victim of your suffering or you choose to overcome it, you choose to embrace it, and you choose to be the better for it yourself. And then you try to make the world a better place because of the experience that you were for that, you know, circumstance gave you the chance to experience, and you try to make others and the world better as a consequence of that. And that's my advocacy, is to try to make everyone deal with their problems better and try to make the world a better place in whatever little way that I can.
Yeah, Basti. Yeah, I like that. Dealing with grief, moving on, and then making the world better for not just for your family but for all of us. Now, for Coach Aiza, as a life coach, family parenting and relationship consultant, we've heard what Basi said about his grief. So, what are your what are the common concerns brought to you, to your attention when it comes to grief?
Well, some of my clients, in general, what I probably would say that's common among them is that they look for a one size fit all kind of process of grieving. A lot of them are also in a hurry to get over, if not the ones grieving themselves, the people around them. So they seem to be impatient with their process of grieving, and they complain, why does it still hurt? Why do the memories still come back? Why am I still so in tears? Why am I still paralyzed in movement? And I guess they want to get over it as soon as possible. But what I always say, it's a process. You cannot just get through it very quickly. And in fact, it's different. So respecting their individual processes, not comparing themselves to how another person went through the grieving process, why it's taking longer for them. It's respecting that. And I think that's what's a little bit common. A lot of people, siguro, because things are fast paced now, they want to also make their process faster. But, there's no such thing. You really have to go through it.
Mhm. And also I like what you mentioned that not everybody suffers grief the same way, but
Yes.
there are people who would like to hold on to that grief because they feel like it's like holding on to the loved one, and they feel better about it, and even if it uh, sets them back a lot, holding on to that grief gives them that feeling of togetherness with the person, with the person that they love and that they lost. um Dr. Carandang, what's your hearing Basti and Dr. Aiza? How about
Yeah.
for you their concerns about grief and how to tackle it? What are your
Yes.
thoughts on this?
Yeah. Well, first of all, they Coach Anthony and Coach Isa said something very, very important. No, like for example, Basti, I just called you Basti, said something. I'd like to emphasize that people who are grieving are in pain, and it's important that people around them or the society itself will have some compassion rather than be judgmental about what they're going through. No, because I think we judge a lot. How does she's grieving? Up to now, she's still grieving. I work with a group called Ina na naulila sa anak. This was started by Gina de Venecia. It's like mothers who lost a child, and that's the most painful thing maybe that you can experience, because there's a word for when you lose a husband, you are a widow. When you lose a wife, you're a widower. When you lose a parent, you're an orphan. But when you lose a child, there's no word for it, because it's not supposed to happen. Children sorry children are not supposed to go before their parents. So it's so painful. And what I want to say is that making it advocacy. So this person, Gina, who I helped for her grieving, is now has a foundation of about 80 or more women called Ina. And the most one of the most important factors that help us to grieve or to mourn. Mourning is the process of expressing your grief, no? So mourning is the process of expressing the inner feeling and thinking you have inside you, which is your grief. So you have to be able to express it. So they have different ways of grieving, and it's so important that they are together. I think grief makes us feel alone. No? And it's really, you're really alone in a way that nobody can ever feel what you're feeling. But I say collective grief because one of the most consoling things about grieving is that we are not alone. When we are together, when nagdadamayan, that's why the Filipino way of mourning, yung merong mga wake and then you tell your story, I think that's healthier than what I experienced in the US, for example, where you're so collected and calm and so cool, and it's everything is inside. Because I think we have to mourn. We have to go through the process of mourning, express our grief in every way we can. That's why I like what Basti said, that we need to educate or help people see that whatever way the grieving person expresses is her or his way, and we respect it, we accept it, and we don't, criticize it. People, as Isa said, people grieve in their own way. They mourn through their own ways of mourning. No, and another thing I'd like to say before I forget is that we think we grieve and then after that we're over it. But we say that grief, mourning is a process, but it is not just a process. We have to say that that process is not linear. Many people I know say, okay, after several months, I'm already okay. How come this month I am back to zero again? I think people, you've experienced that, no? That's very common. They think, what happened to me? I'm okay already. I'd like to say first and foremost, that the mourning process is not linear. You'll be okay, and then afterwards you won't be okay anymore. It doesn't mean you're starting from zero. It only means you walk 5 miles and then you fell, but you start again from the fifth mile onward. You don't go to the 0 mile. It's very, very important for people to realize that, because they get stuck when they think that they're back to zero. You're never really back to zero. For example, their anniversary reactions. On the first year of anniversary of the loss of loved one or the loss of something, you really feel it. You will be triggered. It's very important to know that, because people are doing so well and then they have the 1 year anniversary and they start to fall apart, because it's not linear, and it's really not uniform. No, very different ways of grieving. I also want to say something, but in response to what Coach Eisen Basti said that sometimes, or you said it, maybe somebody said that we cling to the grieving. We want to stay in that grieving process because we want to connect, right? To keep connected with that person that we lost. I think that's true. And the reason is that they say that we're afraid to forget. We're afraid that we might forget them. And we're afraid that if we forget them, we feel guilty that we're being happy. When you're grieving, it's almost like when you are grieving, in the process of grieving, and you feel happy at some point, people feel very guilty because they have to cling to that grief, that pain. I'm not saying that's wrong or right, but I'm saying that there's a reason why people cling to that pain or that grief is because they still feel want to feel connected, but also because they've told me that they're afraid that they might forget that person that they lost, and that they might be feel guilty that they no longer see the face of that person, they no longer feel the pain. There's a guilt there that you let go of the pain, therefore you are afraid that you might forget the person that you love. I don't know if that rings a bell with anyone. Yeah.
Yes, Doctora. This is something also that's quite interesting because those people who console you, who grieve with you, oftentimes tell you, come on, they're in a happy place, and there's this stereotype of grieving where you should look haggard, you should look sad, and
Mm-mm.
things all around you should be falling apart. But then, like what Coach Isa mentioned, people grieve in different ways,
Different
and people
ways.
grieve at different times, and sometimes they hold on to it,
Face.
sometimes they lose it. A while ago, Basti was telling me about an unfortunate I don't know, impression on the way he's coping, and he feels that he suffered twice the loss of a loved one, Aina, and then another. Can you tell us more about this, Basti?
Yeah, well, very quickly, no. Society wants to stereotype you into behaving a certain way. So if, like me, my grief was over long time ago, I really got pummeled and vilified and judged. So I'm quite
Mm-hmm.
disappointed with society in general because they want you to remain a victim forever. That's their they idealize
Mm.
you. The ideal grief person grieving should be in a state of melancholy for an X period of time. But for me,
Mm-hmm.
victimhood again is a
Mm-hmm.
choice, right? So what's victimhood? Victimhood is a license to do nothing. So it's a license to remain in a place where you
Stay.
don't like, and you remain there and you prefer to not move on, right? So maybe the only thing I would say to society is be better listeners, empathize better, love more, and judge
Yes.
less. Judge less,
Yes.
impose your standards less, and focus less on the novenas and focus more on your heart. Focus more on giving your heart to others. I know that it means a lot to me because I really felt how ugly it is to be on the receiving end of all this judgment, right? So I'll just end with
Wow.
one pragmatic and practical advice. When you go to someone who's grieving, never say, I know what you're feeling. That if there's one takeaway from me, never say those words. Because when you say those
Yeah.
words, you brush aside the feelings of others, you reduce them to nothingness, and you denigrate it to something that you have experienced maybe once or twice in your life. We are no one to tell anyone that their grief is something we have experienced or that we know what it's like. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that calls for respect and compassion. No, I think we have to have a kinder society. A more gentle way of living, a more gentle way of dealing with each other. In fact, that's what's called for now because we're grieving many things. We lost a lot of things. Loss of a deep pain or the loss of a loved one. I mean, that's something very, very painful. We have our own pain. As Port, Pope Francis said something very, very related to that, Basti. There is a girl in Tacloban who was telling him about her problems at home in the family. And you know what he said? I cannot take away your pain, but I will be with you with my open heart. I think that's related to that captures what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, just one more thing, no. In Spanish, when people condole, they don't say condolence, because in our place, condolence means nothing. It's just we say it without thinking, no. I like what the
Mm-mm.
Spaniards say, because I'm in Spain right now. They say te acompaño en el sentimiento, which means I accompany you in
I'm
your sentiment, because
That's
that's
beautiful.
exactly what Pope Francis.
exactly what
Yes.
it is. So don't say condolence. My gosh, it's nothing. It means
Trite.
nothing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And in fact, well, I guess it's a culture as a Filipino. We want to talk. We want to be able to say something to hopefully comfort the grieving person,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But in with the best intentions, I guess we say the wrong things. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even yeah, we go in the we run the risk of even offending, just like what Basti have
Yes,
probably
yes, yes,
experienced throughout the grieving
yes.
process. But siguro just for everybody, if you don't know what to say, you can sit with the grieving person in silence and just be there.
Don't say
You don't,
anything.
no, you don't have to
Yes.
say anything. I mean,
Most,
maybe,
yes,
yes. At saka, mahilig din tayo dun sa kain na. Siguro, our way of staying love is kumain ka na,
yes,
kain ka na. Siguro, pwede yun. And tabihan mo lang. And you can sit together in silence unless the other person
yes,
wants to share.
yes. The most effective way I have seen is that no, you look at the person with sincere look, and then be with the person. Sometimes touch the shoulder, that kind of thing. You don't have to. Words can be more harming if you don't know what to say, or if you want to say something and it might be the wrong thing. There's so many wrong things you say when you're trying to comfort someone. Oh, he's in a better place, don't worry, he'll be okay, that kind of thing. And that person doesn't feel that way at all. It doesn't connect. It kind of like violates something in the person, no? Parang nasasaktan ka palalo rather than makonsole ka. Parang
Even,
ganun yung nangyayari.
even saying,
Yes, yes,
So,
exactly.
you're in
Yeah.
heaven already, okay lang yan. Somebody, I remember, somebody said, okay lang yan. Hindi okay. Makukontra
Paano
ka.
hindi
naging
okay.
okay yun?
Hindi nga, okay.
Yeah. Oh. They'd like to, it's like masking the pain. Kaya I like what Basti said. I cannot take away your pain, but I will be with you.
That's what
And
I said. That's what Pope Francis said. That I said,
Pope
Coach
Francis pala.
Anthony.
And then also
Kay was the one who said that.
what I want to emphasize is it's like Basti's experience is an eye opener because you more or less stereotype grieving, and then you don't know you are adding to the grief of the person that you're
Pain.
supposed to be
Mhm.
consoling.
Yes, you're adding to the
Yeah.
pain of the person. Yes,
Yeah.
because
Definitely.
accompanying is the most we do. No, and when we went, when my team went to the first psychosocial uh, intervention for the biggest earthquake that happened in Baguio and all that, I have a book, and the name of the book is Pakikipagkapwa Damdamin, Accompanying Survivors of Disasters. The most you can do when somebody is in pain is to be there for the person totally, to be present. I think it's the presence that you know makes the person feel accompanied, feel connected, and feel not alone. I think that's very, very important.
Yeah, yes, like
Make your
Doctora yung
presence be there.
yeah, you don't have to say anything and just sit quietly. Like, thank you, Doctora and Coach Aiza for those insights and those answers. But now moving to another part of our show, Doctora Hani, could you give us a brief description of individual grief and collective grief? For example, in the recent Philippine elections, we have encountered
Yes.
supporters grieving the loss of their candidate. How would you say they start moving forward from this event? Because until now, it seems
Yes,
like,
I am inundated with that every day. But at least 20 people
wow.
asking me, crying about I'm brokenhearted. I gave my all. This is a young person. The young person gave her money, herself, organized the doctors, the tricycle drivers, was there the whole day until 4 a.m., etc. And now she's brokenhearted. So she came here, where I am in our nature sanctuary, and she said, I'm brokenhearted. So I said, yes, we are brokenhearted because of what happened. I mean, you don't console her by saying that's okay, you'll feel better. Yes, it's really heartbreaking. I said, no, it's really heartbreaking. And that made her, calmer, because even by saying that, you're validating. Because one of the most important things we do when people are feeling whatever it is they're feeling is to validate their feeling. And for children, this is essential for their growth of their true person, no, their authenticity and integrity. One of the first steps to to develop integrity in children and other and older people is to validate their feelings. When they say, I'm angry, why should you be angry? Oh, you're angry. You validate, you make them know that there's nothing wrong with what you're feeling.
Yes. Yeah.
Validating is one of the most important things, ways we accompany people in their pain, their emotion, or even all kinds of emotions. It's just validating it and saying, yes, it's
Just
broken, it's heartbreaking. That statement made her really calm down already. Then she started
Oh,
to talk about her experience. And then the most important and magical thing you do is to listen mindfully, to listen with all your total presence and all your heart and soul, and just listen. And that is very, very healing. The listening, mindful listening, is the most healing act you can give to another person who is in pain, maybe trauma or whatever it
So,
is.
Doctor, how is
The
this
mindful
mindfulness healing? I'm sure hearing.
listening,
I'm sure this is
listening.
not listening. I'm sure this is not offering
Yes.
unsolicited advice. This is not trying to say something that
No.
might make. How do you
Yeah, it's
participate in
even
this?
your non-verbals are very, very essential. Now, for example, I say, okay, tell me more, and then I say, tell me more. But the big difference, diba? So it's really, but when you say, tell me more, please tell me more, very big difference. When you tell me more, how can you make the person know that you're present for her? But when you say it in a way that your whole being is there, tell me more. It's so healing just by your nonverbals. But remember, your nonverbals must come from inside you. You must be authentic. You must be true when you are saying that.
yeah.
Because the worst thing you can give to another person is the lack of authenticity. Is to pretend or to say things that are not what you feel. And the person will
Sense that.
will feel even violated by that. You're not
Correct.
being true. I think somebody said about being true. Was it you, Coach Anthony?
Yeah.
Honesty. You said something in the beginning.
Yes, yes, and also, uh, Doctora, Coach Aiza, how about you? And anyone has approached you, or because I myself, I mean, 24 hours, 48 hours after the elections, it's bordering on being not able to do anything, and then
Deluge.
Yes.
questioning why is this happening? How do I move on from this?
Yes. And that's why me personally, right after the elections, I also felt something. I felt the need to really collect myself because I know there will be more people who will be asking for help and will
Yes.
be seeking companionship also through that. And I guess that's a difference between collective grief and the individual grief. The collective grief, it's like any national disaster, good earthquake, all our typhoons. There's a whole group of community that experience the same event, and but maybe going through different emotions, same event, but it may mean differently to all of them. So iba-iba pa rin yung nararamdaman. Some are angry, some are disbelief, some are already in the different stages of grief. But it all was felt. So in one sense, madali to feel na I'm not alone because a lot
Alone.
of it felt. But on the other sense, it's a whole energy of zoom. 'Diba?
Yes.
Ramdam na ramdam ng marami talaga. So, that's I guess a difference of the collective grief and the individual grief. Pero it's still a whole process. So talagang the weeks, even up to this week, no, we
Now,
Yeah.
run different
As long as
debriefing.
it's brought up, it brings back
Yes, yes. So hindi rin natin alam kung how long this will take.
and
yes.
it and it and it's not.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
like to
yeah,
validate.
Doctor.
I'd like to relate to that because I have two posts on it that many people reacted to, which is what I said that yes, we have to pause, allow ourselves to feel the pain, allow ourselves to feel the sadness, disillusionment, disappointment, anger. Provide a space for you to feel that, not skip it. Don't move on. You can't move on. You have to go through. The only way out is through. You don't skip the process, no? You go, the way out is in and then through.
Dr. Honey,
So,
parang you have to embrace it. You might not like it,
yes,
but you need to embrace it.
embrace it, allow yourself to feel it because that is the only way that you will truly get through it. And so
And
what Isa was saying is important that now we know we are all experiencing this disappointment. Some are depressed, some are angry, and all that. But when you look at the what happened in the rallies, you can see that there's so much goodness that was manifested together. No? So when you look back, you know that you have felt the goodness, you have felt joy together, you have felt being able to support each other, being able to rejoice together, to work together. That kind of experience must not be lost, especially for our youth. It must not be lost. And I guarantee you, it is not wasted. It is not
yes,
wasted because whenever have we ever felt such togetherness, goodness, caring, compassion, caring for each other, volunteering, giving instead of getting, giving even if you don't have much to give, almost automatically just embracing each other. Those moments are so
Stranger.
precious that I think we have to preserve those moments, and really know that we have experienced them, we know them, we have gone through them together, and that in itself is precious, and that will never go away if we harness it and we bring it together. It's a formidable force in society. But I'd like to say that that force is not necessarily to talk about elections anymore. We'll talk about it to heal, but I mean, eventually, I think that force is a formidable force for changing the culture from lying to truth telling, from killing and violence to kindness, from fear to love, from pagmumura to pagmamahal. If we can harness that force, especially the youth, there's so many young people I'm seeing now, they feel more they feel better, more lifted when I remind them of what they've experienced, and that it will never go away if we nurture it and make it a formidable force for culture change in our society. Yeah,
And I
wow, there you go.
super agree
yes,
with Dr. Rahani. And even in her first point of you can't escape it. Because a lot of people either they feel it too much, they're still in it, or they moved on too quickly that they don't want to feel the feels. But if you don't feel the feels, it will catch up to you. Parang you're repressing. I always say it's like either a volcano or a pressure cooker. It's not releasing the energy, and you will cover it
yes,
up. Then the pressure will go out somewhere, and it will come out in your different interactions with people or with yourself. So kailangan talaga
exactly,
i-release yan. At
Yeah,
saka,
Coach
yes,
Aiza, if I may interrupt, you talked about yung doing something else because you want to cope, and it might lead to. How about yung unfriending sa Facebook? This has been going on even before we got the results from the elections.
yes,
Differences in opinion, differences in candidates. It
yes.
makes them feel better. What's your take in this? Yung unfriending culture,
Ako, in
cancel
anything,
culture.
diba? We always say think before you
Ah,
click. So that includes the unfriending, the unfollowing, the blocking in Twitter, in Facebook, in Instagram. You have to understand the repercussions and also be clear with your intentions. Because some people, their intentions ay, okay, nagtatampo ako sa friend ko, dapat pareho kami ng stand. So, isa silent
oo.
treatment ko siya, i-unblock ko siya para it's just getting attention para pansinin niya ako, sana sundin niya yung gusto ko. Yung iba naman, ay, na-hurt niya ako kasi umoo siya dun sa nag-troll. So parang gumante,
Mm-mm.
na-unfriend kita to hurt back or hopefully to teach a lesson pero baka the other person's not willing to learn a lesson from you. Or it may also
Yes.
be some sort of self-care. If it's some self-care, either you're removing yourself from triggers because you're already feeling hurt. That's to me that's okay. Or you're removing yourself from toxicity, or when you see that person you're already being judgmental and you don't want to be in that place. If it's really about self-care, then I think that's a good intention to have and maybe that's allowable. Just
Yeah,
know that
I
there will be
agree.
repercussions when the other person finds out, ah, you unfriended me. Then you can honestly tell her, it's not because we have different differences, but it's for me to have some peace. Then that's what you can say. I think that's
Yes.
that's where that can be more acceptable. Doctora. Yeah.
Yun, Doktora.
Yes, I agree because I think first of all, we all need a break from social media. We definitely need, even before the elections, I was always telling people take a break from social media, from the bashing, and so many things. It's a whole lecture on social media, but don't want to go into that. But number one is take a break from social media. Always take a break. uh, FB especially, and all the bashing of the adolescents that I got before this who have become suicidal. So even adults, I know somebody who detoxes every Saturday, which is an executive of a big firm, and I advise him to detox, and that helps. So yes, unfriend, whatever, take a break. In other words, the essence is take a break. Don't allow yourself to be assaulted. Don't allow yourself to be violated. If you feel violated, do something. Don't allow, when you feel violated, stop it. Stop it. First step is, as Aiza said, self-care. Self-care, especially in the profession we are in. If you don't do self-care, you will never be able to help anybody in the long run. You'll burn out. And if you don't take care of yourself, you cannot take care of any other person you want to take care of. And there's so many people you need to take care of. So how do you do real self-care? First,
Right.
Yeah.
and
There
do
Can
you
I
it
go.
can I share?
periodically and regularly and always do it, and don't just do it when you're already burnt out. Do it regularly with a kind of schedule. Reserve the time.
Yeah, for
There
Don't
you
me,
just
go.
do it when it's an emergency and burning out. Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
Basti. I
just
sorry.
very quickly, my
Yes,
view
go
naman
Basti.
is a little bit contrarian, because for me, parang in life, we need to learn how to withstand viewpoints that are opposite from ours. So if we simply unfriend, we're negating the problem, which is our inability to tolerate the opinions of others. I mean, that's in life. That's the way it is. If
Yes,
one of us,
I
if
yeah, I agree with that, but you have to take a break. There's a limit to what you can take. For example, this client of mine, she wants to hear everything, but she was breaking down. So there's a limit. Know your limit. Very, very
correct,
important.
correct,
Know your limit. You want to practice resilience. But if you are already breaking down, you
correct,
have
correct.
to respect your own feeling and don't force it. Don't allow yourself to be violated, because when you take a break, you're not violating. You're not allow. You are just taking care of yourself, so you can listen more. Because if you listen and you're already very affected, you're ineffective, you are violated, you are victimized,
Correct,
and you
correct.
cannot help.
There.
So
Ano,
yes,
Basti,
just
what
wanted to
about
add.
pragmatic response to this election? Any thoughts that you'd like
Mm.
to share? We were talking about that a
Well,
while backstage.
yeah, I'm from the business community, right? And in the business community, what we really want is continuity, and we're very lucky in our country.
Yes.
You know, you look at South America. For those who study geopolitics and know what's going on in the world, you will know that in South America there is a sudden preponderance of far left leaders who are getting elected. And what they're doing is they're really ruining their nations. They want Venezuela in two or three more countries in South America. It's very sad. And these are despotic type of leaders that they elect who feel like with the wave of their magic wand they can enrich the poor and impoverish the rich, and that's their idea of social justice, right? So in the Philippines, we're very lucky. In Philippines, we're very lucky. We get continuity in all our leaders. They want incremental changes, although small, and we have generally been making the right choices for the last 25 years. So if you look at GDP growth, we've maintained 5 to 7% for 25 years. Our currency is extremely resilient and strong. Our banking system has great liquidity, so access to capital is almost unlimited in the Philippine capital markets. Um, Inflation is under control. So basically, the economic fundamentals of the Philippines have been very good, regardless of who we've elected into office. So I kind of prefer to trust in the wisdom of the majority. And of course, I'm kind of also in the same political leaning as sort of everyone else in our circle, but I'm also accepting of how the country decides. And I'm also accepting that politicians, although we like to label them this way and that way, that in the end and at the foundational truth to every politician is that they want to help the country while helping themselves. So it's sort of a win-win where they win and then the country wins along with them. And you just have to look at what Sri Lanka has done when they've elected their president, and now they have no foreign reserves, zero. You look at Turkey, where inflation rates are 35-40% per year. And, you know, then you think yourself and say, thank goodness I'm in a country where we don't elect lunatics and despots into office. You don't want a despot. All you want is a level headed person who kind of will do the right thing most of the time. And fortunately, that's what we normally get in the Philippines. Of course, we like to focus on the caricature type of, pitfalls that our leaders have, and we can do that. But in general, if you look at the conduct of our economic affairs and so on, we cannot complain. Life in the Philippines today for your normal Joe middle class is much better than it was 30 years ago. So that's the message of calm and optimism that I want to give to all those who are listening today. You can have two options. You can have learned hopelessness, so that means you adopt a perpetual helplessness and hopelessness in your attitude and in your life, or you can learn optimism instead and be hopeful and be a beacon for strength and inspiration for everyone. And if we opted for the latter, imagine what we could achieve even more as a country. So that's kind of my pragmatic business person's point of view. Thank you.
Galing, galing, Basti. That's an interesting point of view about politicians. Now, Basti, just curious, what did you do to get that kind of thinking? It seems that you detach your emotions, and if everybody would have been thinking like that or feeling that, then they would have moved on a little bit faster with what the results that we got in the elections.
For me, like if I take it back to the grief of my wife, no, I'd say, how can you make sure that you never suffer the same thing? That you can withstand rather a situation like that. It's very simple, and we can all do it, which is live your life to the fullest potential every single minute, every hour, every day. So since I loved my wife Aina tremendously from the first day to the last day for 23 years and 7 years as boyfriend girlfriend, I became very resilient in the time of her passing because I could not have given anything more. So it's regret that makes us despair, right? So if there's no regret, if there's no what if, so that helps overcome. So and in the election, ganyan, and that's just pragmatic, right? things in the last 25, 30 years have been kind of good from a business point of view. So, um, then we try to learn to be optimistic instead of pessimistic.
Wow.
In
Thank
the
you.
end,
Wow,
sorry,
that's a
one
business
part is
point of
that
view.
in
Yeah,
the end, how you do is in your hands. It's not in the guy or the girl who sits in Malacanang. It's you. It's in your hands only. So, take umbrage in that your future is in no one's hands but yours. Thank you.
I agree. I agree. So thank you. So to our viewers out there, we're having a very interesting and very spirit-filled discussions. Maybe you would have questions. Don't forget, you can type in your questions and participate in our discussion this evening. Now, for Doctora and Coach Aiza, can too much grieving or staying in that state of grief result to a mental illness? Is that possible, or grieving itself is a mental illness at that?
Oh, grieving is not a mental illness. It's a normal reaction to loss. No? But if a person is is in that grieving, painful state for a long, long time and nothing is done and is stuck, the stuckness is the important thing, no? And is stuck there, then that can become an illness, which may turn to depression, which is an illness, okay? But I think as long as the person's process is moving, even if it's moving slow, fast, or whatever uh, pace it has, because every person's mourning process has its own pace. No? It has its own pace. You don't pull it and hurry it up. Total real grieving is like that. So I think uh, yeah, I think it's important to recognize that we need to grieve at our own pace and we mourn at our own pace. And I was reacting to Basti because he seems to be very extraordinary in the way he has um, been practical about this, no? And I admire how you've worked on yourself, but I think most people are not in that space right now. And I'm not saying they should be in that space, but I think it's also important to respect the pace they're in as long as they don't get stuck. And how do you not get stuck? Well, for example, you need help. You talk to someone. You take care of your health. You eat, you sleep, you exercise. Take care of your health first for your body, because the body stores all our trauma, the body stores all our stress, and it's the body that speaks the truth. Sometimes we're very good intellectually, but then suddenly the executive is so bright, and so great intellectually, doing everything, suddenly collapses at 54 and has a heart attack because of the body being affected by the emotion that they are not paying attention. The body is tired, the body is drained, the heart is painful, the back is painful. I think we have to pay attention to it. If your back is painful, if your top shoulder is painful, you pay attention to it. You don't disregard or ignore it, because it leads to more grievous
And Doctora,
illness.
to I'm sorry for to cutting you short.
Go ahead.
I'm just
Yes.
worried about you were saying that the body reacts it. I'm just worried about too much grieving and mental health issues, because trauma affects the brain, and when the brain is affected, the whole body is affected. Memory, physical
Of course.
activity.
Yes. I specialize in trauma, no, and recovery. So I think trauma affects the whole person. And the trauma is stored in the body. The brain it's in the brain because of the emotional brain. The trauma is, of course, everything is in the brain. But what I'm saying is, if we disregard the pain in our body, if we don't allow our body to heal. If, for example, you have a pain in your neck and you don't pay attention to it, like, for example, if somebody has a pain in the neck, I always ask, who is your pain in the neck? Actually, I had a session like that, and the girl, her pain in the neck was her boss, and we were able to talk about it. And she was, at the end of the session, she had no more pain. What I'm saying is, we know it's all in the brain, but the manifestation is in the body. The brain and the body are one. So
Controls
whatever
the
is
body.
manifested in the body is in the brain. Yeah. It's not separate, no? So trauma affects the brain, of course, definitely, but trauma is stored in the body, and the manifestation of what's in the brain is manifested in the body. So when I'm healing people, recovery from trauma, I always make them pay attention to their body because the body speaks the truth. Very smart psychologists will rationalize and say I'm okay when then the body aches and the heart aches, the stomach aches, the head aches. That's a sign that inside you it's not okay. So I say take that pain in the neck, the pain in the shoulders, the tap in your shoulder, and saying a friend saying, "Hey, wait, pay attention to this. Rest, pause first, rest, pay attention, do something. Maybe you just need to rest. You're tired and your body's taking too much of the pain. Rest." That's why I always
Rest,
say rest is a
pause.
moral obligation.
Yeah.
Rest is a moral obligation.
Yun. Thank you. Thank you.
Even
Thank you,
Jesus
Doctora.
Christ, yeah, Jesus, even all religions talk about the need for rest. For example, Jesus Christ didn't just rest on the seventh day. He rested when there's a big crowd that was, maddening crowd. He went up the mountain in solitude to rest. Because if you don't rest, you burn out, but if you don't rest, you become irritable, you become easy to anger, you become difficult to live with, and you make other people around you miserable. So it's
And that
important
goes
also for you to
contrary to what
rest.
Basti was saying. Now we make this a better place. Not just because you're moving on, but that's the objective. Now, ako, Doctora, Basti, and Coach Aiza, sayang. We still have a lot more to talk about, and I'm really learning a lot, and I'm sure our viewers also are learning a lot from this episode of ours. Now, before we close the show, any final message to our viewers out there? Let's start with Basti.
Go,
Uh,
Basti.
Thank you. For me, my message is just to, embrace life today. Don't wait till tomorrow, because just giving your all today and giving all of your love and everything that you can offer, all the abilities that were given to you, helps you become more resilient for whatever is to come tomorrow. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Basti. Thank you.
Me.
Doctora Carandang.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. It's so beautiful. I wanted to add to it
Yes, yes,
that
yeah, Doctora. Go ahead. Go ahead.
okay, with what Basti said is a living mindfulness with mindfulness. So you live the moment, be present to the moment, do everything you can, give what you can, and therefore there will be no regrets. I think that's what I want to add to it. So
Yeah.
because you know that you've done everything you can. That's what I was telling also this person who's brokenhearted who came here last yesterday because she gave all, and I said, you know what? Uh, Embrace yourself, celebrate yourself because you've given so much, you've given all, and there's no regret because you gave purely, truthfully, and fully, and celebrate that you did that. Just to highlight what Basti said. So I practice mindfulness, which is being present, being aware of what's inside you and what's around you in the present moment, non-judgmentally, and with kindness.
There.
That's the practice.
Celebrate life, di ba, Doctora?
Yes.
Celebrate life.
And
So any
yourself.
any any final message, Doctora, to
Aiza.
our viewers?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Baka Aiza wants to, sorry Aiza, can you do it?
I
Kasi
saw you.
kanina ka pa.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Wait. For this, just for regarding these elections, I just want to say to everyone, there's a reason why you're grieving right now. No, for anyone, whoever you supported, but as long as you didn't, they didn't win, because this elections probably is the most divisive, and therefore people really invested energy, time on the internet, on the streets, in their resources. So it could mean different things for many people. It can mean hope for them. So that's what they're grieving about, the loss of their hope, what they thought was their hope. The loss of probably the deeper one is probably loss of democracy, especially if there are anomalies, alleged anomalies that they are seeing and are looking for answers. Or it can be especially deeper for those who experience trauma, and in
Mm-hmm.
particular those who probably went through martial law and all that, then that's a different kind of grief because it brings
Yes.
back a lot of other things. So what Doctora said, what we have been talking about, feel the feels, it's okay because you care. Even if it's individual grief, we feel it because we love. The pain is equivalent to how much we've loved during the
Mm.
campaign and during when our loved one was still with us, right? So we probably will never get rid of the pain, but we'll get used to it. And so
Mm-hmm.
we'll just go really through the process. I just like to commend what one group of during this election did right after. And I think it's a wonderful way. I think it's a textbook way on how to deal with collective grief, which is to do a public mourning, and that's where one group, I don't know what the candidates of like the ISCO group or the Lacson group or the Liodi group, what they did, but I know that the Robredo group did a collective gathering and they
Yes.
all cried together, and that's a public mourning that's very good and cathartic for everyone. And then there's call to action, so there's still energy, and you need some venue to use that up. And so they have a call to action on a foundation where they can continue to help, continue to address, and I guess what Basti is saying, what you can do as an individual together with what has been started, and Doctora addressed that earlier. There have been a movement that have been started, so paano yun itutuloy. And then but you also allow for individual grieving because again it means differently, but do not rush yourself. It only means you cared a lot, you loved a lot, and therefore be kind to yourself as you go through the grieving process.
Yes.
There,
Wow,
I
very,
see.
very well
Galing,
said.
Coach
Very
Aiza.
well said.
Galing.
Yes,
Thank you,
yes,
thank you.
I'd like to. Well, she said it very well. I'd like to just highlight the fact that as a group, the people who are grieving, I know a big group of people who are grieving, who gave their all, as you said, who gave everything. There are no regrets because you gave everything purely, totally. But I think what I want to say is that is not lost. In fact, that energy, that enthusiasm, that goodness, that caring and compassion is there. It is totally present and is so real. We experience it fully. And therefore, that energy, that enthusiasm, that caring, that goodness that was manifested during that time when we were together, these people were together, we still have it. So we'll harness that energy for a certain cause, maybe as I said, maybe a culture change, especially the youth. The change from lying to truth telling, from violence to compassion, from killing to kindness, and being kind. And I think if we can preserve that, especially for our youth, they have it. The energy is still there. We can harness it again, but this time with a direction for a better Philippines, meaning a culture change that we need. We have to accept that there's so much lying, so much fake news, but we also know that we've experienced truth telling, we've experienced honesty, we've experienced care, compassion, we've experienced if joy, enthusiasm, it will not be lost. We just have to harness it and bring it to its proper place, maybe at a certain time, the dates that was, we could again bring it out because it's still there. It is not lost. Nothing is lost
There you
in that
go.
area.
Yeah, that was what Coach Aiza was saying, and that she liked about the Robredo group, that
Mm-mm.
I think they closed it, and then the call to
Yes.
action is to make everything better and to do something about that energy that they were
Mm-mm.
able to achieve, yeah,
Collective.
during
Mm-hmm.
the collective energy of the group. Well, for me, my takeaway is whatever your loss, it's personal to you, so you don't feel ashamed about how you feel, and believe that it's somehow only appropriate to grieve for that loss. If the person, relationship, or situation was significant to you, it's normal to grieve the loss that you experience. And whatever the cause of your grief, there are healthy ways to cope with the pain that in time can ease your sadness and help you come to terms with your loss during during difficult times like this. We often need to learn from our church, from our support group.
Prayer.
Often, yeah, prayer. Often these church groups like the BCBP are one of our greatest sources of comfort that help us find new meaning and eventually, yeah, move on with our lives and do your call to action. And definitely our faith can certainly be a great source of comfort throughout the grieving process. Our emotions after suffering a loss are strong, but remember that our faith is always is even stronger. So, in closing, that was a heartwarming and insightful episode we just had. Thank you very much, Basti, for sharing with us your thoughts and your feelings. We will be praying for you and your family. And to Coach Aiza and Dr. Carandang, thank you for sharing with us your expertise, your advice, and I'm sure your valuable information about our topic really is helping all our viewers. And I'm sure this will also help Basti and all our listeners cope up with mental stress or mental health concerns that they have right now. So again, thank you to all our viewers for being with us tonight. We hope that we have increased your awareness and helped you better understand mental health concerns and issues like grieving and about the elections. So again, I would like to invite you to like, follow, and subscribe to the BCBP Alabang on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook page. So good night, go live or go live. There, we're back. This is the
It
back
doesn't.
room.
I would have added part of the reason for unfriending, unfollowing is maricondoing your life. You know maricondo, right?
Marie Kondo.
You know
Don't
you,
worry, Coach
you
Aiza. We still have we
Ah,
still have listeners. We still have viewers
right.
here.
So you get, they say that you get rid of things that don't bring you joy in your life. So ganun din daw what they do with their
yes.
friend list. They remove things that don't bring
Mm-mm.
joy to their lives. But then again, that's where
Okay.
Basti
Yes.
also said na you might be removing yourself an opportunity to understand other perspectives or really like that. So if that's your mission, then you might want to keep them as your friends just to check your tolerance level on how much
Yeah, to
different
practice.
perspectives. Yeah, to practice. Or if you really need more space in your life for more important people in your life and you feel you don't have the same values, the same belief system as this particular person, unless it's a relative, right? We will
Tama.
do.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, Coach Aiza. Marie Kondo, hindi yung Marites, ha? Kasi yung
Iba
Marites,
si
nagbago.
Marites.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Akala ko marites eh. Well, anyway, yeah, right now I'm having getting questions about how family members can come back together after the rift of the election, no? Because
that,
many
that's a
people I know, for example, the father is for a certain candidate and the mother is for the opposite candidate. So they're kind of like drifted apart. Maybe that's a mild word, but they fought, and then now they don't know how they're gonna come back together and mend mend the the rift or mend the brokenness, that broken family, so to speak, no, the broken relationship. So this is one of the questions that's being discussed now in a dialogue that we're having, because it's family, as Isa said. If it's your friend, as Basti said, you might want to see how well you cope, and so all that you practice, that's fine. But I think it's also okay to let go of toxic relationships. It's okay to let go of toxic relationships that really just drain you.
yeah.
That's also very okay. So
Dok
but
Honey,
what's
paano nga
difficult
ba
is
yung,
if it's you're living together. Yes,
yeah,
your family, you're living together, then you have children and the parents
yeah.
are on opposite sides. That has
Even
caused so
sometimes
much
parents and child, eh.
hurt. Kuminsan yung madalas din yun, mas madalas yun, the young adult child and the parent, yun madalas yun ngayon.
Paano nga
And
ba
they
to?
and they have a hard time now coming back to each other. They live together, so it's sort of not like a friend who lives far away, or
Yeah, yun ang
somebody.
mahirap.
So
Yeah.
that mahirap yan because the family is a system, you know, and every
Here's what I
pain or stress.
Yes,
Yes,
Basti.
yes,
here's what
Bas.
here's what I say naman to people who quarrel and all that. I said, is it really, you know, I said in
Worth
other
it.
countries that are more developed, their political differences are fundamental. One believes in the right, the liberal viewpoint. One is more
Yeah.
conservative. So that's irreconcilable. In the Philippines, what you're really arguing about is whether you like a person or not, whether you like their face or not. I've asked people, why do you like so and so? Tell me a policy reason that has to do with fiscal and monetary policy, for example, that you like one and not the other. Not one person has been able to give me a policy statement that they find disagreeable for one and agreeable for the other. So my point is, I try to distill it to that. You're fighting and arguing about a perception of something or someone. Is it really worth it?
Unless,
Because in the
yes,
end, that's what it is.
unless it's core
So
values. Yeah.
it's not rooted in policy. It's rooted in things that we perceive, right? They're perceptional things that we glean, but not policy, not written formal policy. Which is, when you talk about politics, that's what you should be arguing about, and those were all the different slides. So I'm just trying to tell people, look, it's not, patch up the differences. Don't fight with your loved ones. Don't fight with your friends over that. And even if you don't agree, why end sever ties in relationships over something that in the end your mayor will be the same mayor, your congressman will be the same congressman, the party list will overrun Congress, not
Pero,
your
pero, pero Basti, what they're
geographical
saying is what they're
distribution.
saying is these are what I tell them naman. Sabi ko, you built the friendship for many years. You built
Correct.
that
Yeah.
because of the
Absolutely.
times that you spent with each other, and then even differences.
Absolutely.
Kaya lang with these elections, parang what they're saying is, now kilala ko na siya. Ganyan pala siya mamili. Sabi ko, bakit? What's different? Parang yun yung sinabi mo nga, Basti, na give me policies, not
Sayang.
like,
Sayang the
However, if
friendships and
I
the
may
ties.
interject, it's
Yeah,
hard
it's
to answer
always
that
like the question
question.
is it worth it? Is it worth it? I mean, what's the bottom line? You know?
But it's also
What's the
hard to
bottom line? Is
answer
it worth it?
yes,
Basti's
Coach Aiza.
question on the
It's hard.
policy,
Yes.
because
Yes.
one of the candidates never showed their policy, their
Policy.
platform. Hindi mo rin
Right.
masagot
Right.
ano nga ba yung
Right.
this what you
Correct. I
stand for and
agree.
what the other one stands
Yes.
for.
Yes.
So that would be difficult.
Yeah, I think yes, it's easier in business. I think I'm not a businessman, you're the expert, but what I see is working with a lot of corporations, it's easier to be more objective in business. But when you're in a family, for example, and you deeply relate to each other and care for each other, and then you see that your core values are different. It's not as easy. It's also, you can also do it. I mean, you can still reconcile, but what I'm saying, it's not as easy as an intellectual exercise. It's really a deeper kind of pain that you have, no? When it's family and you're really opposite, it's really not easy to just say it intellectually, because these are emotions that are intense, they are real, and the emotions cannot be ignored, they cannot be denied. So the emotions affect us totally, totally. No?
Yeah,
And I
okay.
think we cannot ignore that. And
Yeah.
if it's a differences in core values, that's a very difficult thing to just reconcile by talking about it. I think we
Yes,
have to do
I
more
agree.
than that.
Yeah, I
Deeper.
agree.
It's a
I
deeper
agree.
kind of.
So even the relatives who are living with people who are in the other camp should respect the grieving process also of those people and relatives.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yay!
Definitely.
All right. Thank you,
Okay.
Dr. Thank you, Coach Aiza. Thank you, Basti. Can we call in
I don't see
Casey and
Basti